Okay. Yep. That works. Awesome. Let me.
An eye on the Meet a Mentor private Discord channel for a meeting and a huge number of participants. So this is really super exciting, and I'm really glad that we've gotten to this point. And even before we got to this point, I think we've had such a really positive response and a lot of great ideas generated. People have already been helped by getting this, and so that's really exciting. So this meeting is going to be recorded and will be available for anyone who wants to rewatch, who joins late, or is in a different time zone where it is, 2 a.m. and you probably wouldn't be able to use your brain for anything if you wanted to. At least that's me at 2 a.m., but it doesn't stop me from trying. In any case, cool. Welcome to the September 2020 official first meetup of the Meet a Mentor program at Blue Team Village. So I wanted to just recap briefly what the program is, as was introduced during DEF CON 28. And that is essentially, we're aiming to bring together mentees and mentees based on mutual interests for the purpose of developing and working on goals and interests, and for the benefit of both the mentor and the mentee. Because if anyone's ever mentored before, they know that you gain a lot just by trying to give guidance to someone else. So we are making sure to vet mentors that come in, and I will get to the awesome numbers. I love numbers and statistics, so that's the first thing you're going to see for this. So we have onboarded 52 mentors, including 10 core mentors, which would probably be an odd number, but we wound up with 10. They're pretty cool 10. I'm sure you guys agree. So our system is essentially every mentor is either vouched or goes through a small intro meeting where we get to know them just by casual chat. And in addition to that, we'll be working on other onboarding documentation that covers basic rules. At this point, everyone has agreed to the code of conduct, which is definitely a requirement for being in this program. And the code of conduct applies to both the mentors and the mentees. So once onboarded, mentors and mentees both get a specific role attached to BTV Discord. And that is either BTV mentor or BTV mentee. Once you have that role, you have access to a number of channels in the BTV Discord, exclusively under the Meet a Mentor heading. So these, I'll talk a little bit more about a couple of them later, but the Meet a Mentor Meetup channel, which I just renamed for meetings because meetings is too formal, that channel is actually open for Hangouts. So if anyone gets tired of hearing my voice for the next 15, 20 minutes, you can go hang out on there and, I don't know, complain about me or something if you really feel like you want to. So I've also created mailing lists for everyone that has submitted the interest form. And we'll be using that for communicating important updates. Whatever email address you submitted is what was used, and that will also be used for the mentor matching when that gets assigned. So other cool statistics. I just put together a slide. I think it's kind of interesting to see like who our population is, who wants help with what, and who are the people that are being onboarded as mentors. So pronouns wise, we have almost 80% he, him pronouns. She, her pronouns is around 17%. And they, them pronouns actually constitutes about 3.5%. And a couple people selected other options as well. So I think that's really important because we want to make sure that we're a welcoming community and we're asking that people honor other people's pronouns. I think that falls under the code of conduct of just being respectful and being a good person. So for top career interests, technical skill acquisition was both the most important thing or interest that was selected by the mentees, and also the strongest area of expertise for the mentors, which is great because that makes matching a lot easier. And then the second thing, confidence, ranked really high for both groups. So we already know that these are things that we want to work on. And based on this response, the first panel discussion is technical skill acquisition. So we're going to dive into some of the questions that you guys submitted through the Meet a Mentor private channel. And then career change and transition is definitely up there in terms of what mentees are looking for. And we do have quite a number of people in the mentors that actually have either transitioned into InfoSec or are adjacent. Like myself, I'm a systems administrator. So we have a lot of experience to add to that pool. And then for technical interest, again, the top two categories are actually widely shared between both the mentors and the mentees. Like, you guys really love DFIR, like really love it. 75.7% of mentees are interested in DFIR and the related categories that we put in there, that we put in the form. And then again, threat hunting and intelligence also is a big win as well. And then it's split out a little bit, that third place, but you know, who's counting? And for career level, we have mentors across pretty much every career level. So for me, I think I'm more like early mid-career, but that's a very hard thing to define. So I tried to add in categories that would cover like people's different life experiences. Because even someone who just got into InfoSec, maybe they have 20 years of career experience that can apply to how someone wants to work on interpersonal skills, working on interview skills and things like that. So it's not always about like how many years of InfoSec you have, but how many overall years of experience you have. So not reflected in this slide is that the fourth place career level for mentees was actually want to transition into InfoSec, and it's around 20%. So 20% of mentees want to transition into InfoSec, possibly from another field or an adjacent field or something like that. So I love statistics. I think these are really interesting, and I think it's really great that we already know that a lot of our community is actually compatible with each other. So the information you're all waiting for. No, matching is not done yet, but it's 90% there. Maybe like 89, 91, not really sure. Haven't really put a solid number on it. I love Python, and there are a lot of you. When we started talking about this program, we honestly didn't expect there to be around 240 submissions in the interest forms. That's a lot of people. And what I don't want to do is say, take a random mentor and match him with a random mentee. I full-heartedly believe that it should be based on common interests. There should be compatibility in those career levels that I specified. So while we're taking longer to do this work, it's being done thoughtfully. And I again, really appreciate everyone's patience. I think around DEF CON time, I was like, oh, it'll be next week. And I unfortunately may have a little bit too much confidence in my Python skills for that. So I'm still working on it, but it's in the debugging phase at this point. So I'm hoping by sometime next week, I'll be able to start releasing at least a first round of matches. And if you have not noticed, we have a lot of mentees. We have like about 170 and not nearly as many mentors. So the first round is going to be a direct one-to-one match, basically meaning the first 52 or 53 mentees will be matched with someone roughly. And then after that point, we're going to collect information from the mentors about how many mentees they can take on. Hopefully, we won't wind up, I'm hoping that we don't wind up having to waitlist too many people for too long, but we want to make sure that we respect everyone's time. So the next portion that I do want to talk a little bit about is some logistics that we've kind of hammered out in terms of what the matching will look like once it's released and completed. So the plan is basically, we'll be emailing both parties with, hey, so-and-so, you've been matched with so-and-so. My plan is to include, what common interests you matched on, some rough reason why you were put together, and to share both Discord handles. So the reason for that is, and I'll probably be BCCing people as well, privacy is a huge concern. I mean, we're all in or close to the InfoSec community, so we do want to be aware of these things. So essentially, we're trying to keep it all on Discord, at least at the beginning. So I will talk a little bit more about the logistics in just a minute, but the other thing that I want to make clear is that we have a base level of expectations for how much time a mentor and a mentee, like the frequency of the session. So I'm going to say roughly you should expect to have one 30-minute session every other week. That's a baseline. That's like, if you don't know what to expect, let's go with that. Once you're paired with someone, you can adjust as you need to. Everyone's really busy. It may work out for both of you to meet once a month, may work out for both of you to actually meet more frequently. But I want to just set that expectation that when you're assigned with a mentor, you're not going to be able to ping them at all hours of the day and ask technical questions. It's not really the way that the program is designed to work. So that's something that you need to work out once you're matched with someone, with them directly. Let's see, what do I got here? Whew, that was a lot of talking. One second. And if you don't have a beer yet, feel free to go grab one. We've got a panel discussion in like 5-ish minutes. All right. So you'll also notice that on Discord, under the Meet a Mentor section, we actually have a whole bunch of channels. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what these are. Meet a Mentor Meetup channel is open to mentors and mentees. We've been using it for doing orientation onboarding for the mentors, but we can actually open it up as a kind of an open voice channel for anyone to use as they want. There's no schedule attached to it at this point. And if we just do decide to use it for some purpose at a time, we'll make you aware of that. We also have Meet a Mentor Room 1 and Meet a Mentor Room 2. So both of these are actually for one-on-one mentoring sessions. And the way that's going to work is there'll be a link, like a scheduling link, where you actually can make an appointment on that calendar, and it will show free busy for other people that may be interested. So with that calendar, you'll be able to see if you can use one of the channels at any particular time. If there's someone using it and you do not have a scheduled appointment, you will know not to hop in that channel. And then we also have like mentors private channels as well. So we're learning and growing, and eventually we may add or modify things, but at the moment, I think it's really important to have designated spaces for the private sessions, just to start people out with, when they're matched with someone, having a place to go on Discord where they don't need to give out any extra information until they're comfortable doing so. If, after a few sessions, you're comfortable with the person, it is totally fine if you want to go off and do Zoom sessions. Although at this point I hate Zoom, so I don't know why you would do that, but that might just be me. But the point here is that we have some amount of oversight into like who has access to these channels. So we want to keep that as a more private option for people at the start of their relationship with their mentor. And obviously we'll post more details about the calendar options as that time comes. So real quick, just to stress that the goal of mentoring is actually kind of to graduate. It's to set goals, to work with your mentor, and then eventually to go from A to B, to accomplish something. So the first couple sessions you'll want to spend just getting to know each other and actually establishing those goals and figuring out what it is you want to get out of that relationship. And we've talked about this a couple times, but there is mentoring versus tutoring. The expectation of mentoring is that, your mentor is a sounding board. They have experience that you don't. They can give advice. They can share personal experiences. We don't know everything. I mean, no one knows everything. No one is going to tell you exactly what to do or not to do. We're also not there to just answer technical questions. Google can help you with that. But what we can help you with is, hey, I've been down this road. I learned this. I did that. This was my experience with it. So if you're, struggling with like a technical topic, a mentor can be someone that helps guide you to resources that they found helpful, but they are not necessarily going to be the person that tells you like what the difference is between TCP and UDP, for example. And then lastly, or maybe lastly, I'm not sure where I have my slides. If a mentor-mentee relationship is not working out for either party, please contact the core mentors. I'll have some more specific information about how to do that in probably the next week or so. It's okay if you don't click. That's totally fine. We'll do our best to get you reassigned. And then, as I mentioned before, and I will keep mentioning until I'm blue in the face, we all signed up and agreed to the code of conduct. So it is very important to take everyone as they are, to respect everyone's opinions, and just to generally be good to each other. And then the last thing is just that we always welcome feedback. So get in touch. If you have ideas, please let us know. All right. That was, well, technically I have like 1 minute until the panel is supposed to start, but I do want to like scroll through the chat real quick and see if there are any outstanding questions. Oh, awesome. Plug's been answering them. That's great. All right. So I think just once, let me check all of my notifications, which there are about 1 million of. Yeah, okay. So I had the plan to either do a bit of a quick Q&A or go right into the panel. Does anyone on this call have a question? And if you do, please raise your hand. Do not unmute yourself, just raise your hand. If I can actually see who raised their hand, that would probably be helpful. Guys, I am really bad at Zoom. All right, I'm not seeing. Oh. All right, Taj. Hi, Taj. What's your question?
Yeah. Hi. My question was, sorry. For example, if when we are registered for as a mentee and have selected more than one area of interest, then how would the mapping for a mentor be done? For example, if I have 2 or 3 area of interest, then would I be mapped to 2 or 3 mentors?
So
Thank you.
you'll be matched to the first person who is both available and matches the highest amount of your interests. So if there's someone available that matches 3 of your interests, that's going to be the highest priority match for you. If someone is available and the highest number they have is 2, then that's who you'll be matched to. All right, anyone else?
If I can add on to that, that doesn't mean that you cannot ask questions on any of the channels you have access. So if you're partnered with a mentor and maybe that mentor doesn't cover a particular criteria that you're interested or topic, then you should maximize the access you have. That's why we created the channels that are independent from everyone else. So you get the priority to contact any of the mentors and any of the mentees. So do use them. They're there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with that. Any other questions? Please raise your hand if you have another question. Also, like, I swear every minute I just hate Zoom more and more. All right, I think we're good. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask my panelists to unmute themselves and turn video on. Danger zone. All right, so we've got Pierre, Nico. Let's Waste Time, and Guile. Okay, awesome. What are we missing? Where's understudy?
I'm right here.
Oh, awesome. Is your video on, or is this?
No, my video's
just, on. Okay, cool. There's like way too many people. I swear there's way too many people in this thing. Okay. So the Viox, can you switch? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Now we're back on grid view. So if you can
We're good.
do some kind of magic, that would be great. And if not, we'll just go with this.
Yeah, so I think now is where everyone that's attending can change their view to gallery view. And
Gotcha.
also, if you like go to Muteki's video on the top right, you click those, no, not that one. Somewhere you can set it to show the video of only the people who are sharing video. So I would recommend doing that. That's what I've done, and that's how it's going to be recorded. Yep, so I have, yep.
Cool. All right. So with no further ado, actually, I feel like I've said that 5 times and then there was like some amount of ado. So take of that what you will. So tonight's panel is technical skill acquisition, which 70-something% of participants on the Menti side found that they were interested in. So it kind of made sense to have this be the first panel topic. I'm going to just ask you guys to introduce yourself. So let's start with, what order did I even do this in? I'll just go by how I see you, I guess. Pierre, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Pierre. I'm one of the managers for the Cisco Talos Incident Response team. I've been doing information security for quite a while, for roughly about 20 years, in various different roles. I've been an executive CISO. I've been in charge of global IR teams, and I've also managed IR functions within companies as well as consulting organizations. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Guile, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. First of all, greetings from down under. So should I say greetings from the future? It's now Friday here. It's still Thursday there. So I work as a cyber threat analyst for Cyber Research New Zealand. So I'm based in Melbourne, but the main office is in New Zealand. So before that, I used to do technical training consultancy with FireEye, and then before that I used to work for a Cisco partner. So I basically transitioned from a network security type of role before I moved to cybersecurity, and I did that by combination of training and graduate school stuff.
Very cool. Let's Waste Time. Would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Let's Waste Time, otherwise known as Sydney. I have about 6 years experience in security and about 5 on top of that in IT. Most of my experience has just been blue side. So I've done a lot of forensics, a lot of incident response. My current role is leading threat hunting at CenturyLink. So that's been fun.
Cool. Welcome. Nico, introduce yourself, please.
It's Nico. I spent a great deal of time doing IT for probably about 5 to 6 years. Spent some time in the military, and for about the last 4 years, I've been doing incident response, and work currently as a SOC analyst for Recon InfoSec, and just because I got to plug it, the volunteer for the Open SOC team. So
very cool. And last but definitely not least, understudy.
No, I can be least. That's okay. This is a good panel. I'm Sean. I am the current SOC manager at Verizon Media with the Paranoids. I've been doing InfoSec for probably 12 years, almost all threat detection and response across SOCs, incident response firms, engineering, management at both private companies, government, and like the MSSP space. I do a weekly Blue Team focused podcast, and I'm an academic advisor on a newer certification. So I tend to be pretty active community side as well as work.
Awesome. Thank you. So the way I'm going to do this panel is basically, we have a list of questions, most of which were collected on the MetaMentor private channel. I took a few of them and merged them. There were some related questions. There are a couple that were a bit out of scope. We're going to try to get through the bulk of them if we can. And I'm going to start off by picking on one person for each question. And then afterwards, anyone else is welcome to join in on the panel. And we will have some Q&A afterwards for the mentees and anyone else that joined. But I'm going to ask that we hold that until the end. So only the panelists and myself will be speaking at this time. So please keep yourselves muted. All right, first question. I'm going to direct this one at Guile. This one is, for a complete beginner hoping to build a career in cybersecurity, it could get a little overwhelming to figure out which domain suits them the best. How did you find out your niche?
Okay, so in my case, it was largely like in terms of my interest. So ever since I was a kid, I've always been fond of reading mysteries. So I grew up reading Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie novels. And then, so basically I have an interesting backstory because I have a very different degree. I have a psychology degree, went to law school for about 2 years, and then decided to get into IT, to tech. So it was more like, my background is like Cisco networking, and then I specialize in network security. But I always wanted to figure out how to use technology to figure out what has happened. And I kept reading about digital forensic stuff. Then finally, I was able to specialize in the DFIR side because this is something I've always wanted to like figure out what happened. So given, let's just say, logs, or like there's like an intrusion or something, or there's an alarm, I want to know what happened. So it's always like what happened, but I want to make sure that I have the evidence to back it up. So that's basically how I figured out, like, I want to do the blue team side. Plus, in terms of personal, experience, I'm like the ate. Ate means big sister in Filipino. So I'm sort of like, although I'm short, I sort of like, I defend my sisters and my friends from the bullies when I was a kid. So I have that sort of like the big sister role. So I think it came naturally to me to just focus on the defensive side because of that. So I'd like to think that I use my skills and knowledge to help defend and protect, not just organizations, but also my, own family members and friends and the community, of course.
Very cool. So anyone else want to answer this question too?
I can chime in here. A lot of what I do is actually working with people who have just transitioned in or very new. And I usually give people the same kind of challenge. Don't think about the specifics, think about the concept. So like conceptually think about what it is you like. Do you like the idea of being a detective? Do you like writing? Do you like, that kind of deep dive investigation? Do you like speaking? And think about kind of conceptually those areas that you really, really enjoy. And then you can work with a mentor or somebody who is more familiar with the industry, who can take those concepts of things that you like and transition them into kind of the place or the fields that you might want to go, and really use those to say, hey, these things that you like match here. These things that you don't like, you probably might not want to do these things.
Yeah, I like that. Nico, did you want to add something to that?
No. In my experience, it's just been what I really come down to enjoy. So figuring things out, I like puzzles, and it came down to I wanted to do this, and I kind of just set my mind to it and say, okay, what do I need to do to actually figure out these puzzles? And the other thing is from the red team perspective, what were all the things that I was doing that I didn't know I was doing? And that was the other kind of motivating factor there.
Very cool. All right, next question. I'm going to direct this one at Let's Waste Time. Did you learn more from experience, education, or certifications? And what are your go-to resources for developing a new skill?
I definitely think it's going to depend on the person, which one of those impacts you the most. But for me, it is experience, I would say, and that goes along with some certifications that I have obtained and the hands-on skill that I've learned from getting those certifications and studying for them. And then my go-to resources for new skills, I really handle it kind of like I handle a new problem at work. A lot of research, which includes things like Twitter. A lot of conferences post things on YouTube, and you can watch a lot of topics. I know that's how I learned a lot about threat hunting, just watching what other people have presented and posted. So we have first researching, and then just hands-on doing it. So something like building a lab and then doing it on your own at home is probably the best way to acquire a skill, in my opinion.
Cool. Anyone else?
Sure. From where I've said, I've certainly seen benefits from all of those things, as was being said there before. A lot of times, people in our field will learn by experience because we're often hands-on learners, but everybody's going to be a little bit different. What I find, though, is that if you have some of the foundational things that can then be used for your experience, it's important to go through that in certification or training first. So you have some of the basics and you kind of know the questions to ask. If you're just presented with a problem without any tools to address it, it's going to be more difficult. So get some of those tools from a standpoint of questions that you'd ask or things that you want to look for. So maybe think about, okay, I want to be able to see how this activity looks on this kind of a system. Then you have to understand how to then go through and understand the behavior, how to see the logs, how to see where the data is coming through, the traffic, etc. If you know that, then you can start building up a good rapport of how to then see that again and use it for other types of attacks. Okay, well, I know how to do this one. Let's do it again, as was mentioned in a lab situation, and run the next attack on there and see what's different about it, and then iterate from there. So really, it comes down to your self-education is going to be a lot of testing or learning about new attacks or new questions you're going to ask of the data, and how to then get those answers out of the data from a different way. We're still always doing the same kind of systems, the same kind of data. It's just how we look at it differently and what perspective we're using to see it.
So I'm gonna pipe in. So I basically agree with everything you've said. Like I started reading up on my own, and then sometimes it's kind of like lonely because you're just reading up by myself. It's good to be in a community of learners, and that's why I went for some courses. And then the certification is in terms of, I'll be honest, it's sort of like a put in the door kind of thing for the HR, because sometimes or the HR systems, they look at certain terms. But the most important thing is you have the foundation knowledge. And then once you have that foundation knowledge, you'll be able to, use different resources online. There's like tons of resources online. I used to say that when I was starting out, like trying to move into this field about like early part of the 2000, it was kind of difficult because there's not a lot of write-ups or blogs, but now there's a lot of stuff out there. It's just a matter of figuring out where to start. And I feel that having someone who's been there, like having a mentor, would like to point out, hey, this is a good resource. You may want to check this out. It's sort of like they've been there and they've like looked at the materials, and that's like, a good way. And once again, like the conferences, I miss going to the conferences. We're on lockdown here in Melbourne and we can't go out beyond 5 kilometers. So yeah, the conferences are really good because there's people sharing their research or their experiences. But I'm really glad that we have online stuff, because like the online conferences, so people like me who are like so far away from the US gets to, hear, research from other, researchers, people from different parts of the world. So it's like really good to have this, opportunity.
I'll add to that and basically echo everything, but for anybody who's watching, remind all of you that it's really important to know how you learn, because everybody's different. Certifications, classes, school, I'm horribly uneducated in every sense of the word and have 0 certs. It's just not how I learn. I need to break stuff. I need to, I guess, be a hacker basically and have that mentality. But I am not everybody. So it's really important for each one of you as an individual to really understand how it is that you consume knowledge, how you retain knowledge, and how you can utilize and call back that knowledge. And that'll really help you pick the path, because me as a hiring person, like, I don't really care about your education or your certs. I care about what you know when you walk in the door. So being able to call back that information is really number one for me. And really understanding the concept, not just being able to spout memorization.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. So the next question, this is kind of related to something that Let's Waste Time mentioned briefly earlier, but it's how do you practice your DFIR and other blue team skills at home? Actually, I have understudy as the person I was going to pick on, so that's actually probably a pretty good segue.
Sure. It's really interesting because I remember a couple of years ago, a lot of what exists for kind of the defensive side didn't exist. Like I'm so over the moon about all the work that Blue Team Village does, and I'm going to shout out OpenSOC and the Recon folks. So, you know, there are places you can grab Splunk Boss of the SOC for free, any of the old versions, and you can go play with that. And that's a simulated environment. It's pretty good. You can join in any of the Recon InfoSec or OpenSOC challenges, which is probably one of the best educational CTFs I've ever seen for this field. You can take advantage of a lot of different things and talks and tools and build your own malware sandbox or build your own network with pfSense or Untangle or all these free UTMs and firewalls. We're so much farther along on like resources for defensive people today. And I'm so thankful that the time has been put into it because it's hard, right? It's not like an individual tool or let me pop this one box. To really get to play, you really have to be able to simulate in an actual environment. And there's people doing it now and those resources exist.
Yeah. So does anyone else have like a response to that question? Do you have like, you know, what's your strategies for keeping that up? Go ahead, Nico.
I've got a couple. I reach out to the community. So there's a lot of CTFs that are out there. One of the CTF Discord channels that I actually stay in and frequent quite a bit is Laptops Hacking and Coffee. They run a CTF year round. They're always running puzzles and things. I look for government challenges. Believe it or not, the government throws out a bunch of challenges to a bunch of universities, and they're usually pretty open past universities and soldiers and things like that. So you can jump into those. And then collecting old hardware. I pick up servers or whatever else so that I can build out things and learn how to do stuff with open source tools, specifically open source tools, because for the longest time I was very broke. So having things that are available like Elasticsearch and other blue team tools basically that are out there so I can learn those things, because I didn't have the money to spin up a Splunk instance or something else like that. Nothing against it, it's a great tool, but I needed to find alternatives for me to be able to learn the craft. And then the last bit is finding people who do have those resources and reaching out to them. You'd be surprised, a lot of the folks that are on GitHub that build these tools are very open to talking to you about those tools and giving you some knowledge about how they function, how to get them deployed and things like that.
Very cool.
In my case, I set up virtual machines. So I set up the local virtual machine and then observe, like that's, for example, like a malware when it runs. So that's one of the things that I do. And then I look at packet captures. So, and then there's a lot of resources out there wherein they provide, you know, packet captures of, like, for example, C2 command and control traffic for malware. So that's a good way to look at their network behavior without, you know, accidentally infecting anything here. So that's what I do. And I also participate in CTF. And then there's one thing that I'm quite active with. It's like doing OSINT. So there's this group called Trace Labs. So they use OSINT to find missing persons. So that's actually one of the, it's not CTF anymore. It's called Search Party. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, some really awesome answers here. Does anyone else want to contribute? Or I have the next question is actually mine, so I think I'll go ahead with it. So this was interesting to me. Someone, as a panel question, asked what roles or positions could be filled by someone on a part-time basis, like 8 to 12 hours a week, that is planning to transition full-time into InfoSec in a few years. So in the channel, I think there were some okay answers in there, But one thing I actually saw missing was to consider adjacent roles. And I'm answering this because I'm technically in an InfoSec adjacent position, but I actually do InfoSec. And I actually started as a part-time help desk / AV person, which is why I have a hate relationship with AV. And, you know, just even generally working in IT in like a help desk position, or, you know, there are some part-time like desktop support positions and things like that. Even just being in those roles is a really good opportunity to learn skills that translate, to learn customer service skills. And don't forget that you're never not in a customer service role. The only thing that changes is who your customer is. So if you get to work at a help desk and educate people about how not to fall for phishing emails, how to set good passwords, how not to set the same good password for every single account on the internet, those skills are valuable. Don't discount them. If you're in university and you're looking for a part-time position and you want to go into InfoSec, you know, there may not be that many part-time InfoSec positions, but there are a ton of positions out there in IT, in help desk, in, you know, all kinds of related fields that can help you get experience that's going to be valuable. So
can I pile on here?
Yep.
So one of the things that's really interesting, and I have a friend who says this all the time, even entry-level InfoSec is often not that entry level because of what you're doing, which that technology adjacent thing is phenomenal. So like I get my entry-level people through internships, and if I can turn them into something really valuable in 12 or 13 weeks, genuinely I hire them. But I also pull people from one of my most recent hires, I pulled directly from our help desk. Like technology adjacent people are going to have the foundations of computer science and like how computers work, which is almost a minimum barrier of entry to do anything within security effectively. Even entry level positions are not super entry level. So I just have to like the technology like adjacent stuff, so important. If you really want to do this, do not look down on help desk. And never ever look down on phishing, because like 90% of breaches come from that.
Yeah, and as someone who, for myself, is an O365 administrator or systems administrator, yeah, it's all phishing.
It's all phishing, always has been.
It's all phishing no matter what. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that, for example, you're interested in doing GRC compliance stuff. So if you have like previous, like let's just say political science or international relations, you know, kind of, you know, field or something, you could move into those areas of InfoSec. So InfoSec is not just doing blue team stuff, red team stuff. So we also have people who are doing, you know, policies, governance, compliance, all those things, RIS.
Yeah.
It's a big cake with lots of different pieces. And one of the things I also started in help desk in my IT career. So that's a great foundation. You learn a lot of the basics. You learn how to deal with people who are under pressure, which translates very well to information security consulting. Especially when you deal with incidents, you're dealing with people who are under a lot of pressure. And part of your job as an incident response consultant is sort of a grief counselor. Grief counselor, you know, therapist, you're dealing with all those things, and you have to tell them who done it. So you got to be an investigator. You have to be calm. You have to be confident, and you have to also know how to answer the questions they have from the data they give you. And one of the things to think about is that you're not always going to have all the same data. Hearing people talk about doing packet analysis and all that stuff. That's wonderful. I can count on one hand, like one finger, the number of times I've had PCAPs from the time in question, from the time of the incident. One customer in like 3 years. It's rare. Some environments that, you know, if you're building a perfect environment, that's great. You'll have that. But nowhere's perfect. And especially a lot of people who are getting hit by the incidents and they're calling us, they're not perfect and they have a serious problem, and then they're kind of, you know, under a lot of pressure. So think about how to answer the question with other evidence.
That actually ties into something No Hack Me is saying in the chat, and it's really valuable to bring up. Anything that can get you soft skills. One of my other recent hires comes from the restaurant industry, which is fast-paced, high stress, soft skills must. Like we as an industry are no longer a group of people who sit in a basement and just work, right? Like it's all sales and it's all personal skills. So anything that you can do that can bring you soft skills, that's going to help you in the interview. And if you stand up in the interview from a culture perspective and you can speak well and you're eloquent, you're more likely to get a job than the person who can't, who might know more. So like,
And
Yeah.
writing.
oh yeah, be able to write too. And
Yeah,
that's
if
not
you
even
find something you can't
technology.
prove it and you can't document it, did it really happen?
Yeah, that's not even
really
technology adjacent, but like
That's right.
so important in our field and so overlooked so often.
Yep.
So it's
I've had
interesting.
people. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say we there was a recent onboarding happy hour thing that I was on where that actually came up, and my suggestion was, if we're really going to talk about this, that's a whole panel in of itself. That communication and being able, it's one thing to be able to have the technical skills to do something. It's another to be able to communicate what you're doing, why it's important, what you need, and why you need it. So yeah, I mean, that's an entire rabbit hole we could go down. That is, like I said, a panel in of itself. And this is kind of interesting because this panel is based on the idea of like technical skill acquisition. Like, how do you acquire skills? How do you acquire technical skills? And a lot of it comes down to like, what is your learning style? Deciding between certs or experience and prioritizing where you have to and things like that. And yeah, but yeah, obviously the soft skills are very important too. And that absolutely, like, that could be a 4-hour panel discussion right there.
And a lot of times that's more valuable from a hiring manager perspective than the certifications. Just to put that out there from a balance. If you're an excellent writer, excellent communicator, you know how to learn, and you have a thirst for answering questions, you're a problem solver. That's someone on my list. If you have all this list of all these certifications, but you don't come across as a good communicator and you don't have a good approach for writing or giving findings, that's going to be a little more questionable.
10 out of 10 will hire the communicator before I hire the person with a lot of certs.
Yeah, I'd say soft skills and even writing skills are harder to teach than technical skills. So I look for those in a candidate for sure.
Yeah. So that actually, I'm going to use this as a segue into the next question, just because I kind of want to stay slightly on topic, not too on topic. I don't want to be too predictable or anything. But, I think for a lot of people that are just trying to get into this field, there is a heavy focus on certifications and education somewhat, not really to the same extent as certifications. So that being said, let's go back to the idea of like, how do you learn things? So the next question, which is going to be directed at Nico, is which of your own certifications have you gotten the most value out of? What was that value in the technical knowledge acquired or better job opportunities?
It's a little bit of both. So I currently hold a couple, being CEH and a Security Plus. And those actually just came out of the requirements of government work. Not that I wouldn't have gotten those at some point, but Security Plus has probably been the more valuable out of the two, just due to the information acquired. There's a lot of stuff about encryption I just had absolutely no idea about, or management strategies and things like that, things that you're supposed to know at a certain level, kind of walking into this field. The bigger side for me, though, has been more attending a certification course and maybe not necessarily taking the actual certification itself, because the knowledge in itself is what is the most valuable to me. Because I've been to a few SANS courses that I've gotten lucky enough to get into, but the information I get out of those and the practical exercises that come with a lot of those certifications are what helps drive me forward in what I'm doing.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a few SANS certifications I've been fortunate enough to have my employer send me to and get. And I think the process of getting those certifications and all the technical knowledge I've acquired to get there has really helped me a lot. I know SANS is really expensive. It's hard for a lot of people to get. but they have lots of programs. I've done work study with them twice. It's deep discount on their courses. So there's lots of options out there. They put on a lot of free webinars as well. But other than that, there's tons of other free training out there. There's like Udemy, Cybrary, conferences put on free training. I took a Chris Sanders training earlier this year. Highly recommend him. Investigation theory.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
I was going to talk
Yeah.
about
Two thumbs up.
Sanders.
Two thumbs up.
wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I know it
Chris
is a
amazing.
threat hunting course too, which I've heard is great as well. So
Yeah.
lots of options out there. You don't spend too much money. Just gotta look in the right places.
And one of the things that I want to comment on also, I guess the SAND stuff to me, I'm going to also echo that. When I first started my career and transitioned over from being a help desk, sysadmin, server administrator type of person into security, there wasn't a lot at the time. And SANS did have a kind of intro course. I went through that, and my honest statement is that after that, within a year, I had a job that had doubled my income and had a lot more information about what I could say, what information security meant, the whole idea of information security, not just one part of it, but the whole policies, the user account control, everything, the whole cake. And I opened my eyes to a lot of different things, and I was able to then focus on more things that be able to speak at a much better level to my employers and to my peers about what it is I was trying to do. That was really foundational in everything else I did in security. And I had a lot of different aspects. I've done GRC, I've done incident response, I've done firewall admin, the whole range. So I would honestly say that's the one that helped me the most. And there've been a lot more specific ones since then that I've also gone through that I really liked. I haven't got certifications from all of them, but the learning and the training was definitely necessary, for sure.
So I wanted to add one more thing in. I was a Cisco NetAcad instructor for about 3-ish, 4-ish years for high school students. And during that time, I taught certifications for high school students. So it was Security Plus, A Plus, Network Plus, CCNA certification, or if the way Cisco had it, CCENT at the time. And the biggest value for a lot of my students that went through during that time was just the course material to, one, kind of figure out what they were interested in, whether that be malware reversal, exploitation, threat hunting, things like that, or just straight IT administration. It helped them figure out what they were going to do, and then some of those entry level certs did help get through that HR force field to get into some of those places and get those entry level positions.
So I'm going to actually use that to jump on to the next question, which is directed at understudy. This question is, it's kind of a combination of several questions that were asked. Other than offensive sec certs and hack the box, which other practical exams and courses do you recommend to advance in cybersecurity? How do more experienced members of the information security community view cyber IT material costs versus value, or quality, basically?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to skip the SANS side of it because I think they're largely expensive and out of reach for most people. Genuinely, there's something that you do when you have a company that'll pay for them rather than trying to pay out of pocket. One that's newer, and I say this with an absolute disclaimer because I have an inherent bias. There's a company that came out recently called Security Blue Team that's doing Blue Team Level 1, and they're creating Blue Team Level 2 right now. The reason why I have an inherent bias is because I'm an academic advisor on that cert, so I actually help them build the content, and I want to make sure that that's very clear up front. Like, I do it because I believe in it, and I think it's a really cool, practical education session in certification that's relatively inexpensive, somewhere like $500. But inherent bias, so take me with a grain of salt, please. Some Let's Waste Time mentioned Chris Sanders, relatively affordable. I think $500 is realistic for people to invest in their own training if they can, and only if you can. His courses end up being around that same price range, and investigation theory is phenomenal, and his threat hunting course is good. He's got a lot of really good courses. As far as like Cybrary and Udemy, pretty much, if memory serves, pretty much anybody can kind of teach on that platform. So the only thing I would encourage people is like, look at the reviews of people who've taken the classes before and kind of make your decisions based on value that others have gotten out of those classes rather than just yourself, or kind of taking a shot in the dark at a class.
So just to add, if you're inclined, if your style is more of like you want to do like self-study, there's a bunch of materials that was published by the ENISA. So I'll give out the link in Discord. So there's like certain, you know, like there's like really like a lab guide, and then there's like a VM, and there's like sample. So I'll pop on the link to the Discord. So if that's more your thing, like you like, you know, maybe that due to some budgetary constraints, you know, just do self-study. So that's really good. So I've also used some of those resources.
Cool. Anyone else?
I would definitely say keep an eye out, and this is from a personal space for me, because I was always trying to find free opportunities to learn more stuff. MIT has tons of free courses you can take and sign up for and learn tons of information. Department of Homeland Security has courses you can sign up. They're not necessarily the greatest, but they get your, you know, they pique your interest, and they start you down some subject lines that you might be interested in. Right now, I'm looking for technical writing courses. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I am not the most technical writer. I am a high school dropout. I jumped into IT, and they were like, here's $20 an hour. And at 18, I was like, sweet, I'm all over this. But look at the different universities that are out there. A lot of them do offer just either severely reduced courses as far as cost goes, or free courses that you can take and get some of that information. And then networking. Networking is the huge one for me. I may not have the money to take a SANS course, but somebody may have some of the materials or the VMs or things that I could take from that course and use it to learn privately. Or, you know, same thing with Security Plus and other things. Now, I'm not saying go steal those things, but some people do have that information, or books and things like that are available for you. So
If you're a learn by doing, and we mentioned this earlier, but seriously, check out OpenSOC. Shout out to Nico on that for being part of that team. Look at Splunk's Boss of the SOC. Look at these CTF challenges that are built to help you build a skill set. Like, you might have to go Google, and you might have to look into different stuff and look stuff up. But like, look into those things, because if you're a practical learner, those things can be some of the most helpful things that you can do.
Yep. There's lots of great free resources. I think a lot of us have talked about those. Those didn't used to exist. And a lot of those within the past 5 years have really come around and come into their own and are really valuable now. So definitely look at those. And again, think about the types of things you want to be able to discover, and start focusing and that's why the Chris Sanders training is really good, because that kind of teaches you a little more of the theory about what you're investigating. And I use that approach in my own analysis and how I teach my employees and stuff. You know, you got to ask a question about the data and start questioning the data and think about what you can pull out of it and what your hypothesis is and how you can then validate that. Lots of different ways of doing that, lots of different approaches.
Yeah, I will chime in to say, I think it's really worth looking at, you know, things that are free, just videos and things like that. Not just because you might learn something from it, but you might also figure out what you don't like about it. And I have learned so much by figuring out what I don't like. Like, well, I mean, doing AV for 2 months was enough to convince me that I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But related to InfoSec, yeah, they're probably, you know, I'm less about incident response and more interested in cloud security. And the only reason I know that is from like learning a lot of different things and trying things and not liking them. So yeah, sometimes learning what you don't like is the best way to figure out what you do like and where you want to actually focus on those technical questions.
And also, one thing to think about is prepare yourself for kind of a longer career. Also, you know, don't just think about what you're doing now or what you want to do immediately, but think about in 5 years or down the road. We're all going to hopefully have a career for a while beyond just a couple of years. And so think about the longer term basics, learning all the essentials, because that will stay valuable and viable down the road, not just the latest, greatest thing that's happening now, because in 5 years, that's going to be dated knowledge. The foundations, though, won't change.
Yep, definitely true.
Windows still has a registry after all these years, as bad of an idea as that is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, in my desktop support times, I have implemented some serious, horrible, never to be done again registry hacks.
Janky reg hacks. Yep. That's the whole thing. Yep.
Yep. So I'm going to steer this again a little bit more cert oriented, just based on the questions. The next question is directed at Guile, and this one is, there are loads of red team courses and certificates, but what would be sort of the best equivalent to developed DFIR/blue team skills? For example, which cert is more respected in DFIR? ECTHPV2, BTL1, others? I have no idea what those are.
Okay, I'm gonna say that I'm biased because I incurred credit card debt by in sending myself to Sunstream. But don't worry, I've already paid it off, so it's okay. I'm kind of like relaxed. So I went through the graduate certificate program in incident response because I did my calculation. That's like the more affordable way of getting the training and getting the certification. Then I went to for a master's in cybersecurity here in UNS in Australia. So in a way, like it's like different. Where it's an international cohort here. So we're pretty lucky here in Australia that the fees are lower. So that was like quite good. So in terms of having the most value for the DFIR side is going for science. It's always the gold standard. That's that's why it's like so expensive. But if you want to start before that, I suggested like going to the ENISA website with all those different self-study stuff that you can do on your own. So at the very least, if you're gonna aim for something, there is the certified incident handler from SANS. So there, aside from the graduate certificate program, if you don't want to go through that, just like what Let's Waste Time said, I also went through the work study program. So just keep on like applying. I've already like told other people to just keep on applying, because there was like one person who wrote that I applied but I didn't get accepted, and I said, when I got to the work study program, it took me like 5 attempts. So I applied and applied. Just try, and you'll eventually get in.
For those certs, I mean, it kind of depends on where you are at. If you're still just trying to break in, something like Security Plus could be a great cert to study for, just because the material covers a lot and gives you like those foundational skills that you need. Some of those other certs are mentioned, the ECTHP, that's a threat hunting cert. I actually hadn't heard of it. I looked it up today. Looked pretty cool. But if you like have a focus, that might be something good. And taking some of those courses, like when you're applying for jobs and having those certs, just shows you have initiative and you're interested in the area and you want it, so I think it just really depends on where you're at. But any type of cert, I think is going to look positive for you.
Cool. Anyone else want to contribute to that? It's kind of interesting because I feel like the certs discussion is always like the answer is always going to be it depends. I mean, I don't have any certs, and I actually don't feel under much pressure to get any of them, because I almost feel like my experience, even being adjacent in InfoSec, is actually more valuable than if I went and got like the Security Plus or something like that. But it really depends. It's like, what are you going to get out of it? I would not encourage, anyone incurring credit card debt to get certifications, even if it is paid off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that it depends on the part of the world you're in, because I basically came from APAC, and I'm originally from the Philippines and migrated to to Australia via Singapore. So there are certain, countries or cultures wherein it's very like, degree oriented. So it's sort of like, if you don't have that particular degree, you should have at least an equivalent cert or something. So it's like something that, some people from the international audience may, experience. Yeah.
That's a really good point, and I'm glad you're saying that. That's exactly why I wanted to have a more diverse panel, because we have all kinds of ranges of like education levels, experience levels, different certification numbers. So yeah, that is a really good point.
Certs and degrees are not necessary to be in this field. It's the skills you develop, and sometimes you get them from obtaining those.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely, 100%.
I mean, yes, yeah, it's like aside from like getting the experience in terms of the lab activities there, so the foundational knowledge that I've gained helped me like become more confident and in venturing out to my own. So it also depends on the, the learning style. So for me, having that foundational experience in a structured environment helps me, because when I'm by myself, it's like, oh, should I start here? Start here. There's like a lot. So it's sort of like that focus has helped. Yeah.
Yeah, the goal of obtaining the cert has really helped me, because then I have something to study for and obtain. It's that process. I mean, it's not just a memorization thing. It's like learning the techniques and the skills of whatever cert it was for.
actually, that brings up a good point. I'm going to contribute something here as well. I am notoriously a horrible self-studier. Like, I am not self-motivated at all. I need a deadline and like something to achieve. So for me, like, I'm actually in grad school, and for me, like the pressure of like going to class and like doing the homework and taking exams, which, I'm a shit test taker, so that kind of throws a monkey wrench in things. But having the structure actually makes a huge difference. So for example, I'm taking SANS Sec 545 cloud security later this month. And fortunately, my employer is paying for it. It's not going on a credit card, amazingly. But just the structure of like, okay, cool, I know that I'm going to learn stuff and I'm going to be expected to keep up. That in itself is something I've identified as my way of learning things. My way of learning things is under a lot of pressure and a deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why, even if you don't get the certification, taking the courses, even if it doesn't matter where it's from, but taking a course, and then maybe also having a peer group that you can share knowledge with and share questions with, and they're going through the same thing as you, that you can say, hey, I'm on exercise 14 and that doesn't make any sense to me. Can you help me? Maybe I missed something. That is a big benefit also. But that pressure, I kind of get that too. And I get that. That's one of the things at work, being a consultant, when you have someone kind of breathing down your neck saying, what's the answer? What's happening? Tell me what's going on. That encourages you to learn. That's a pressure thing. But getting to that point beforehand, of course, the training simulation of going through the course, that's a good way for you to have expectations. You have to be read up on things. You have to, track your notes and all that sort of stuff like that. So, yep, absolutely.
So what Pierre talked about, I call it a community of learners. So it's good to have a community of learners, because someone may be like, stuck in something, but someone who's already figured it out will be able to sort of like help that person. So it's like really good to be in a part of a community of learners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find your tribe, so to speak, right? Like, find a group of people that you can learn with, be that online, be that in person, be that wherever. But a group of people who are passionate for information will help. I'm in a Discord server called Dead Pixel Sec on a regular basis. And I mean, we started doing like Saturday, like fireside chats where we help teach and we ask questions and answer questions. There's study channels for people studying for different things, or certs, or who just want to know different stuff. Like, finding a group of people that you can learn with is so helpful to your own personal motivation.
And I will say too, the act of trying to explain something you think you understand to someone else really clarifies whether you really know it or not.
It's funny because I tend to put my most junior people on as mentors for my interns, because it tends to be a really valuable experience for those junior people to learn how they teach and to learn to be patient, and to learn how to teach and ask questions and slow down. And I do that on purpose from a growth perspective for those individuals.
Yep, absolutely. It's a little bit more of a different skill set too. It's that more soft skill, communication, listening, and then being able to try and teach something that you think you know, and then you have to answer someone else's question. You're like, oh, I never thought about it from that perspective. And it helps both, which is again why we're all here as mentors. We like that and we want to help with that. Yeah.
Every time I give my introduction to malware analysis talk, I'm sitting there in my head going, shit, someone is going to know way more about this than me, and they're going to call me out on my crap. Every time.
So that actually reminds me, someone in the chat pinged me the question that was like asking if presentation skills are valuable. And my answer is, well, yes, they are. And my own story of that is like putting the pressure on myself to actually learn how to give presentations. Like, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable right now. And if I had had to do this like 2 years ago, I probably would have had a panic attack and just like completely stumbled over every word and freaked out. And yeah, so also presenting about topics really nails it in as well. When I've had to go and give presentations on things that I've learned, like I've done talks on serverless microservices at this point, like, you know, when you're giving a technical presentation, you're actually putting together a slide deck that really like drills in like, hey, what if someone asks a really technical question about this tiny little piece? Like, you know, am I going to be prepared for that? And one, it helps you figure out what your technical holes are. But two, you know, it also reminds you that like you don't know everything and you're not expected to, because wherever you are, whatever you know, technically or otherwise, you probably know more than someone else. So let someone else learn from the little bit that you know.
I can definitely second that. One of my old my networking students, has actually been schooling me for the last 6 months on reversal of executables, malware, everything else, because that's what he does now professionally. And this tonight is probably my first any sort of public speaking that was outside of a classroom. So this is it's been an 8-year process of me steadily trying to improve my skills so that I can get to doing something like this, because I do enjoy helping other people learn about the things that somebody else taught me a long time ago. And I will be the first person to tell you, if I don't know it and somebody else does, I will latch onto that person and try to leech as much knowledge from them as possible so that I can learn at least a bit of it and maybe find out if I like it or not. So
it's really interesting, because I find mentoring newer individuals into the field, one of the hardest things to teach them is that they have value. And I don't know if I can make this more clear to anybody who's listening, but everybody has value. Everybody has something worth teaching. Everybody knows something someone else doesn't know. And I feel like newer people don't recognize that, and they get in their own heads and they don't feel like they can bring any value to the table. And you're doing yourself a disservice when you don't recognize your own value.
No matter what your background is, you bring value in some sort of perspective to whatever challenge there is.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. And when you're looking at moving into a place or hiring, one of the cool things is to look at the organization, the team you're going to be working with, and see what kind of people are there, because you want to be in a team of other people who are helpful, who are interested in supporting each other, and who have the concept of sort of a shared responsibility. So it's not going to be just you out on a ledge. It's going to be you with a team. And even if then you go, the fact that you maybe know one part of the thing, but you know that there's other people in your team who you can lean on for those other parts you don't know. That's why I'd much rather be in a part of a team of smart individuals than just be one guy who's a superstar at everything, but he's the superhero, puts his cape on and off he goes, and the rest of the team's left behind. I'd rather have a team of people who all have good skills that can work together.
So actually, that is a really great segue. I just saw a question in the chat that was, is it better to be great in one area or good in a lot of areas? And my answer to that is, if you start big picture and learn a little bit about a lot of things, you can always focus later. So it's kind of funny that you said that, because that's like, that was
Yeah.
2 seconds ago.
And it really depends on where you are in your career to a certain extent. If you immediately want to be marketable for a specific thing, then you want to be great at that, but then good at other things, and then you want to kind of progress along the way. It's a continuum. It's not going to be a point in time only once and done. And that's one of the other things about this career, is you're going to be continually learning for your whole career, and be prepared for that. It's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of new challenges you've never even heard of, or never even thought of. In 5 years, 10 years, things will change. The basics will stay and the fundamentals will stay. So those are the things you need to know. But some of the ways of getting information, some of the tools, some of the challenges and threats may evolve, but the basics will still be there.
There's someone that I met before in a conference, and she came from a totally different background. And I said that, yeah, this is a technical field, but technology, skills can be learned, but the perspective that you bring in, like for example, I said, all our attackers are coming from, different countries, different linguistic backgrounds and all those things. So if you bring that diversity into a group, it helps, the team or the group become better defenders. So for example, you come across a piece of malware written in you look at the variable names and it's not in English or something. It turns out that it's written in, let's just say, Farsi, and you have a Farsi speaker in your team. So that diversity adds to that, because the more diverse your team members are, the better it is to understand these different threats coming from different threat actors.
I'll knock this down and just shout out my team, because I love my team. But this is the layout of my team. One person who's been threat detection and response /SOC his whole career. One person who comes from help desk. 2 people who come from a NOC. One person who comes from restaurant management. And my intern is an ex-Olympic horseback rider.
Lovely.
I
love it. I love it.
Awesome.
All about a diverse set of individuals, because those experiences bring so much value in different opinions, in different ways to think about and solve problems, different ways of dealing with stress, all things that are so valuable in what we do.
I'm going to piggyback off that for a second. So one thing that that is constantly on my mind is like diversity in InfoSec. And it comes up in pretty much every discussion I've had. And diversity, whether it's like racial diversity, if it's like the LGBTQ plus community. So I'm gay. I represent both a woman and a gay person in InfoSec, and even though I'm InfoSec adjacent or whatever. So I think that it's great to talk about technical skills. It's great to talk about education certifications. But if hiring managers or other people in InfoSec only focus on those technical areas, those pieces of paper that say that someone has a skill, they're only limiting themselves to the people that have access to those resources. And that is not always the case. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind.
I had a very long argument while the panel was going on in chat about my dislike of SANS being a barrier of entry, because it's not realistic for most people and we lose out on a lot of good candidates. Not saying that SANS isn't valuable, but saying that putting an $8,000 barrier of entry on even coming into the industry is not fair, and you're losing out on diverse, solid candidates who may not be able to do that. And we need diverse, solid candidates, because a group of people who think the same are going to suck at their job.
That is completely true.
Yeah.
And I hate to keep dominating this because I'm supposed to be the moderator, but there is one other thing this just reminded me of. There was some Twitter thread I responded to that basically said, that like trying to block attacks by like a certain geographic location is just a bad practice, but it's also it's a bit of a racist practice. So I have worked for a previous employer where we used a service that decided that the best way to cut down on spam was to just block QQ.com. So if anyone knows, QQ.com technically is a legitimate service. Yeah, okay, maybe there's a high amount of spam that comes from them, but are you gonna block Gmail because a bunch of people spam from Gmail? No, you're not. So it's inherently racist to say, because this service is from China, we should just block everything from it because it's probably bad.
Yeah. There's a lot of overreaction, and that goes back to what you're trying to protect yourself from and what is valuable to you from a service perspective. There's better ways of doing that.
Yeah, so true. A lot of companies are guilty of that. Probably all of mine that I've been at.
I'm lucky enough to work for a worldwide organization, so I don't quite have that problem right now. But it's been at a lot of places that I have been at.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was a really good off-topic tangent, though. Like, I think talking about diversity in InfoSec is really important because I don't know that it gets talked about enough.
It's kind of always on topic, really. But yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It definitely should always be on topic because if we're aware about it, and a lot of us are doing hiring, we have to think about these things. You know, if I get a good candidate and I get to interview someone who maybe doesn't have a whole bunch of certifications or education, but I think they're a good candidate, I'd rather that be my barometer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll be completely honest. I find the people that have less knowledge do better in my SOC than the people who have more, I shouldn't say knowledge, I should say experience and certifications. They tend to do better on my team because they don't come with bad habits. They don't come with superiority complexes. They don't come with a lot of the other issues that exist. And I can build them kind of from the ground up rather than having somebody who's going to fight. Well, at the last place, we did it this way, which was definitely wrong.
There's a concept of investigative bias that I learned about in Chris Sanders' course.
Yeah.
And that kind of speaks right to it. You know, don't go in there thinking, I know, I've seen this before. I know what this is. No, start by looking at the evidence and then let the evidence talk to you. Understand, make a hypothesis, that's fair. But let the evidence really prove or disprove that. Don't go in there saying, oh, it's this. That's not going to be sustainable because you're going to be wrong. And you're automatically starting off with a biased perspective.
That's in the investigation theory course that we talked about earlier.
Yes, Chris Sanders.
We did a whole paper and a study on cognitive bias in InfoSec investigations. Yep. It's a fascinating read.
Dude is smart.
Oh, yeah.
We're definitely going to be posting that. Sorry, go ahead, let's waste time.
And one of those courses that's not super technical, it teaches more of the theory, which you don't get ever. And typically people don't even recommend that. You know, that's not really something that is usually taught.
I had one of my new hires take it this year because, as I put to him, he is all talent, no structure. And I wanted him to build the structure baseline on the back of it.
Yeah.
Because he has so just unlimited talent and potential to move forward. Mm-hmm. But I really wanted him to take a training that was less about getting technically more strong, but more about building that baseline and understanding how to think and going at it that way. Like there's so much value in that.
I'm going to interject real quick and pick on Nico because I saw you laughing. So I'm going to pick on you. Go ahead.
So this is definitely a thing that hits the soft place for me. Every job opportunity that I've had since the point of dropping out at 16 has been because somebody has taken that chance on me to come into whatever it is and accept the challenge and learn either what they were trying to teach or rise to do what they needed me to do. And it's important to keep that mindset, right? The whole entire time that I've had the mindset, yes, I would love to go to, UTSA and do their cybersecurity course and get a bachelor's in cybersecurity. However, that might not be in the cards for some people. It hasn't been in the cards for me. So don't be afraid to take chances as far as putting yourself out there to apply for a job, right? Because you could not have any of those qualifications that one company is looking for. But then you get somebody like Understudy who goes ahead and does your interview and you have a conversation about something, or he asks you some technical questions, asks you some questions about how you would handle a situation. And you just give your best response, and that might be enough for you to get your foot in the door to continue and grow and get into this field. That's certainly what happened for me. Somebody took the chance and said, hey, I'm looking for a SOC analyst. And I said, hey, I've only got very minimal experience over the last 2 years part-time. What are you looking for that position? It's like, just come in and interview. And we had an interview, and then that's what led to, me getting that position. And it helped me realize that I actually knew a lot more than I thought I knew. So that was another thing. I'm very much undersell a lot of my skills that I have because I just don't know their value. And I haven't been in the industry long enough to know what the value of those skills are.
It's really amazing that you mentioned that, because the reason why I believe so strongly in taking a chance on people is because I had people who took chances on me, and I want to pay that forward. And I care a lot about paying that forward.
Is someone chopping onions in here?
Oh, no, but to your skills point, I've said this before, and I always get the same response. It's because I'm a white dude, and that's probably true. But like, I do not apply for jobs I feel qualified for. I only apply for jobs I'm not qualified for, because those are the ones that are going to push me and make me learn. And I mean, there's no confidence like the confidence of a mediocre white dude. And I am in no way, shape, or form special or more special than anybody else. But I encourage all of you, every single one of you, you can apply for jobs that you are not qualified for. You absolutely should apply for jobs that you're not qualified for, because that's how you're going to grow, and you're going to stretch, and you're going to learn. And if you're lucky, you're going to find that person who will take that chance. And that will make all the difference in your career.
And to piggyback off on what Understudy said, if you ever interview with a company that makes you feel so low, run away.
Oh, run so fast. Interviews should not be uncomfortable. They should not be pressure filled. Everybody in IR likes to do that whole thing of like, well, we do the heavy pressure interviews because it's a heavy pressure job. They're not comparable. They're not even a little bit comparable. Like, interview stress and work stress are completely different things. Like, you want to be comfortable in an interview. That's going to bring out your best. You want to find a place that's comfortable. You want to ask questions and talk. And have a conversation.
It's your responsibility as to yourself to ask as many questions, or almost as many questions, as they ask you, because you're interviewing them just like they're interviewing you. Make sure you understand that you feel comfortable with the job, that you want to do the job, that you know you can do the job, and that that choice is there for you then to go forward at that point. But you have to have enough knowledge of what it is they're going to be doing, what's going to be expected of you, what the team's like, what your day-to-day responsibilities are going to be, all that sort of stuff. We could do a whole thing on interviews and interviewing.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to ask the manager interviewing them their management style. Because like 90%
explain to me your manager style. And just,
I'm going to jump in real quick because we are definitely devolving to off topic here, which is great because honestly, I have like 10 more panel ideas from it, but not right now.
I'm in.
Yeah, I believe you. This is going to be great. So one related question that came up in chat that I actually do want to hear briefly from you guys, I thought this was really interesting. Someone asked, how do you assess someone's ability to think broad and deep? For IR, I want people that can run issues down, but not get lost in unimportant details.
I can start, I suppose. And I'm going to blow up my spot because this is going to be recorded and now I'm going to have to change it. I ask like three questions in an interview. And that's about all I need to know. And they go as deep or as shallow as somebody wants, and none of them you can memorize. So, I ask people, if I put an email in front of you and say it's suspicious, what do you look for? And that devolves into 1,000 different conversations. That goes into link analysis, malware analysis. Do you even click the link? Do you understand what a sandbox is? How do you investigate things safely? You can basically devolve into so many different concepts from that. And I can use that to say, how deep do they go? Where's their technical knowledge stop? If their technical knowledge stops, can they still think through the problem? Like, you can gain a lot of things from someone by asking a very open-ended question like that. One that one of the other managers at the Paranoids asked recently, he said, "You're a designer, build a parking lot." That's one of his interview questions. I said, "Oh, that's a really good interview question, but I have about 50 more questions for you." He goes, "No, that's what I want. I don't want somebody to go to the whiteboard. I want them to ask 50 more questions. And I want to know what questions they ask, because that's going to tell me what kind of thinker they are." And I'm actually probably going to adopt that at some point too, because I think it's an amazing question.
One of the things that we've done, part of our responsibility as consultants, is that we have to scope out an incident as a customer calls us. So we don't know a lot about them. They don't know a lot about us. So we have to explain a little bit about what we do, and then try and understand what they've seen so far, and then what their objectives are, and start to peel away the layers about what they do and don't know, what they want to get out of the investigation, etc. And so part of what we do for our interviews is to run a candidate through a perspective scoping. So we have a couple different scenarios we'll run them through and just, ask them, okay, I'm a customer calling you up. I've got a ransomware, help. Where do you go for that? And then you can go again in many different directions. You can start asking about what type of ransomware, how you detected it, what kind of systems you have, what kind of controls you have. You've got answers for all those things. But just want to, start off with that. That's a good example because it gives people a chance to then show their investigative approach and how they communicate as well, and how calm they stay, because we have people on the call who are playing the role of the company executives who maybe are not calm, and then how they manage that situation. And so it's a good opportunity to be interactive about what they should expect from the kinds of calls they'll be dealing with, as well as understanding their ability to manage that sort of situation and get the details even in a stressful sort of situation.
I think a question I like is when you go in your browser and type in google.com, what happens? What are the steps? And answering like you're just going on your thought process really shows, your depth and your breadth of how much you understand what exactly goes on through that process.
Yeah, that's a classic. It's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to actually take this opportunity to actually grab a couple of the last questions in here, which are a bit off topic, but one of them I think is really interesting because we talked about barriers to entry. Like, we all know SANS is super expensive. This one's a hardware question. I'm going to direct it at Nico. This one is, getting started in the world of InfoSec, I just have an old workstation. Any tips or advice on what cheap laptop machine I could get my hands on that I could dedicate for learning and that can handle VMs?
So mine was Raspberries being one of them because they are pretty inexpensive. BeagleBones. There's a few things. There's tons of tutorials and guides and whatnot that are out there. But if you're looking for something that you can run VMs on, 16 gigs of RAM and let that thing go ahead and scream as you're running your VMs. I would frequent Craigslist, any of the little seller apps, local Facebook groups, anywhere I can go ahead and grab hardware. I've got a shelf sitting next to me that is just full of random pieces of hardware. Even if it was broke, grandma said, hey, we've had this computer for however long and whatnot. I just get my hands on it. Chromebooks aren't bad, depending on what you're trying to learn. Chromebooks are usually pretty inexpensive. You won't be necessarily running VMs on them, but you can use some free services that are out there. You can spin up, for a while I was spinning up tiny boxes on Amazon through their little free deal. I think Google's got something similar. Google has a cloud service where you can spin up a few boxes for pretty cheap. It just depends on how far you're willing to go, and if you don't mind reusing and rebuilding hardware. And it's good for you because it gives you a base understanding of how that hardware works. I am all about recycling. I'm very sad that it has gone the way of the dodo with a lot of equipment that is out there. But yeah, if you can, basically whatever you can get your hands on will run Linux. And just try not to spend, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars. Also, auctions. School districts throw out stuff all the time. You would not believe how frequently they replace stuff, and they sell pallets of things for cheap. That was another big one for me.
Yeah, building a computer from scratch with scrap parts can really help you learn how it works, how everything's connected. Also, all those cloud providers, Azure, AWS, Google, they all provide free services like Nico said. I think Azure gives you like $100 and free access for a certain number of months. So if you wanted to spin up a lab, you could easily in any of those tools. do some testing. If it's not free, it might be, maybe it could be cheap. I haven't done it before, but I know there's a ton of guides out there that make spinning up labs really easily.
Yeah,
And
I definitely second that.
if you want to like do if you want to learn about this forensics, then there's like second-hand hard drives. That's a good way of like, getting your hands dirty.
Be careful what you find out.
Yes.
I have a pretty good story about that,
Yeah.
actually.
Just, anywhere in the world, if you find child exploitation images, don't view it. Turn it over to law enforcement agency.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, fortunately, the only hard drives I've ever played with were like from my grandmother's computer, which is just photos of me as a kid. No one needs to see that. Normal pictures.
Yep.
All right. I think I have there's one other question. Someone actually asked about good paper magazines for technology intelligence that one could ask their employer to subscribe to. And more broadly, any good paper magazines to read, check, that aren't a copy paste of what you can find on the internet.
I stopped getting any paper magazines probably about 5 to 8 years ago. I used to get some, but they were getting increasingly emaciated, and mostly the same articles were available online, and I didn't need the space taken up. Honestly, I would say take the time to go find those blogs or content providers that you like their stuff, and sign up for a couple podcasts, get those blogs going, get yourself your own little feed of data you want to see, and work off that. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of current published stuff that I'm aware of, at least from a magazine perspective, that's going to give you anything new or different.
It would help if you have let's just say there's some academic research papers that are not published as in hard copy, but in order to access the full text, you have to subscribe or have at least an access to a digital library or something. So you have ACM stuff, IEEE, and all those things. Yeah. But another way to go around that, because sometimes I read about an interesting research, if I can't I look at the price oh my God, it's how many bucks and all those things. And then sometimes what I'll do is go to ResearchGate and look for the researcher themselves, and then send them an email asking if I could have a copy, and swear that I'm not going to be selling this or anything. There are some researchers who are really great with responding, saying, oh, thank you, here's my let's say my research findings and all those things. Yeah.
Cool. So we have roughly 10 minutes left officially, and then I'm going to invite whoever wants to hop on the Meet a Mentor Meetup channel and continue drinking beers. But before I do want to ask one more panel question that trickled in, and which is related, which is, how do you guys personally keep up to date with the happenings in your field? This person's interested in malware forensics, but would like to hear about other fields as well. So how do you stay informed?
I'll start. Okay, go ahead, Nick.
Twitter is one of the big ones for me. There's a lot of people I follow that are very frequent posters of information, things like that, things that they're doing, projects they're working on, so on and so forth. Government agencies post stuff all the time. I can't remember, it's the CISA posts stuff regularly, exploits and guidances and warnings and everything else. Different threat feeds that are out there. There's a lot of the big ones I can't remember what IBM's is. You can sign up for a lot of different threat feeds and have that stuff emailed to you if you want to parse through all of that information. And the other one is different agencies. So I know the FBI does a program between FBI or regular law enforcement, military, and just any field that you could imagine, whether it be agricultural to marketing or whatever else, and they have a whole entire giant feed. You can request access to it. It takes a little bit to get into, but once you're into it, you can read about any sort of threat that is out there for any of those different career fields that are out there. So if it's medical, you can read about cyber happenings in medical, or just random stuff that they've thrown in there for whatever. And those groups have regular meetups. So that's usually what I use for a lot of my feeds.
So same with Nico. I have Twitter, and I follow, not just individuals, but also certain organizations. I find that Twitter is faster in terms of dissemination of information, research findings, and then I also have subscription to different advisories. So we have the different certs around the region, and then there's also, like, for Australia we have the ETSC, so there's like all those advisory there, and then there's certain niche areas that I'm interested in, so I subscribe to those feeds. Yeah, it really, it's like really too much, so it's sort of like I have to like allocate, today I'm gonna read this, tomorrow I'm gonna read something else.
Yeah, I always have multiple tabs open of things that I need to read or want to read. Another good place is like just blogs. A lot of times people post it just on Twitter. This Week in Forensics is one that comes out weekly that I really like. It's like a collection of all the good stuff that's been on Twitter, instant response, forensics, threat hunting, even malware, and talks about a ton of stuff. So definitely recommend that one.
I'm a manager. I'm not relevant in my technical skills. But sorry, I can never resist that joke. A lot of communities. So like I mentioned kind of Dead Pixel Sec earlier, Nova Hackers for a local community for me, Twitter like everybody else. And I guess I'll go with one that's a little different than what everybody had said. I use an app called Flip It on my iPad, which is kind of like a news aggregator where you can just basically type your interests. So I have like cybersecurity and malware and information security and network security and a bunch of different related interests. And it just kind of accumulates a bunch of articles with that tag set. And it's actually pretty useful to stay up to date.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think you're the only one who hasn't answered yet. It's your turn.
Yeah, I would say mostly Twitter is where I get a lot of my stuff from. I get a lot of stuff from our customers. When I get a call from somebody, oh yeah, there's this thing happening, and they go researching it. Oh, hey, look, there's a new thing. And so that often ends up being the impetus for learning about something new. Also, of course, Slack groups. I'm in a couple of Slack groups, professional Slack groups that are great at sharing information, threat intel, approaches, all kinds of great stuff. Again, finding those people who are in the information security industry that are willing to share and interested in sharing, that know what they're doing. A lot of these folks in this community will be that kind of thing. And I'm hoping that the Blue Team Village will have that kind of level of camaraderie and info sharing.
Very cool. I think that if that's it, I think that brings us like pretty close to actual time, which I'm honestly pretty impressed with.
Sweet.
So I'm going to say I have a beer to finish, and it wouldn't be a meetup if there wasn't some kind of like happy hour version of it. So I'm going to invite anyone who's still listening to hop on to the BTV Discord channel, meet a mentor, meetup, and finish your beer or your coffee, whatever side of the world you're on, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. I'll be hanging out for a little bit, not too long because it's been a long day. But thank you very much to our awesome panelists. I think everyone had some really cool, interesting, different perspectives on things. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all the contributions, and you guys are part of the new set of mentors that's going to make this program a smashing success. So
I look forward to future panels, and it was so great doing this with everybody who was on this panel.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. This was really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna have tea. It's still tea time here. So take care, everyone. I'm gonna be I have to go back to work, but I'll pop on Discord and share the links that I mentioned about Anita.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Much appreciated.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye,
See you, folks.
guys.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Bye.